before I let you go today, though, I want to just kind of touch on one development in the U.S. Israel-Iran war. And that is President Trump's attempt to get a settlement. He said on True Social yesterday that Iran had asked for a meeting in Qatar. So he's sent Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner over there. The Iranians said, yeah, actually, I did not request a meeting, and we don't have a meeting planned with you. We're going to Qatar to talk about getting our money released, but whatever. The Qataris said that today. There was no meeting between the U.S. and that, but Trump keeps talking about it. Yeah, that was the Qatari foreign minister right there making that statement there. So there's not really any talking going on, at least not between the two parties. But the whole thing, Doug, I think that if you can have one fulcrum to where this whole war rests, it's on Israel and Lebanon, because that's literally point one of the MOU. And we've had lots of issues where President Trump said, I told them what to do and they can't fight. And then the Israeli sides ignored that. And then we had this weird dynamic where the Vice President Vance is trying to get the MOU signed, which has point number one, that Israel has to end the fighting in Lebanon. And then you had Secretary of State Rubio go out, sign a different deal with Lebanon, the government of Lebanon, not Hezbollah, Israel and the U.S., which has a complete different set of things and works the contrary to that. But here's the big problem. As of there was a video released today by by Benjamin Netanyahu, where he's addressing some of his soldiers in Lebanon, and he makes clear here he has no intention of ever leaving Lebanon.
יחד עם שר הביטחון וסגן הרמטכ"ל הפיקוד והמפקדים שלכם שאיתם דיברתי, המרוג והמח"טים, אני מצדיע לכם. עשיתי כאן עבודה ענקית, ובעצם מה שעשינו זה לקחנו את הציר האיראני והתחלנו לחזק אותו. תקפנו באיראן עצמה, דבר שאף אחד לא האמין, והרחקנו איום קיומי. החוליה החשובה ביותר בציר האיראני הייתה פה, חיזבאללה. היו לו 150,000 טילים ורקטות, שזה הריכוז של טילים ורקטות הצפוף ביותר על כדור הארץ. היום נשאר להם בערך 8%, זה עדיין משמעותי, אז זה כבר לא מה שהיה. בפעילות שלכם אנחנו חיסלנו כמה? 9,000? 9,000 מחבלים, מאות מחבלים בשבועות האחרונים, וכמובן הדבר העיקרי שעשינו, וזה מה שאתם עושים כאן, זה ליצור אזורי חיץ, אזורי ביטחון, לא בצד שלנו של הגבול, בצד שלהם. אז אנחנו עושים את זה בלבנון.
I don't know if you could read all that down there, but he's telling them all, listen, the most important thing is our security zone in Lebanon. So we've killed a bunch of them, but not all of them. And just like we did in Gaza, we created a whole security zone, and we're going to do that there, not in our country, but in Lebanon. We're going to clear this stuff out, and we are going to keep it. Can we reach an agreement, whether it's Rubio's version or J.D. Vance's version, if we don't get Israel to leave?
Oh, of course not. Let's understand a couple of things. Fortress Israel now has to live in a state of permanent conflict and war. There is no light at the end of the tunnel. Look carefully at the audience to whom he was addressing himself. I mean, that picture is worth a million words. I've never seen a more entropic, unenergetic, exhausted, and depressed group of men in uniform. It looks like one of these NTC after action
right
to one of the worst battalions that has ever been through the NTC. The only thing that's missing, well, I guess it's not really missing, is that after they're all there, they know this is a catastrophe, they know they've lost, and then said, no, you guys really have done a good job here. I don't want you to leave here feeling that you failed. Well, they have failed. This has been a complete failure. It's not going to change. So I think the Israelis are now caught up in this permanent conflict. We and the Israeli government have bribed and bullied people in the new Lebanese government to do whatever we want. It's meaningless. The new government is a treasonous organization that is selling out the country, that effectively consigned everything south of the Litani River and probably more to the Israelis. So they have no legitimacy. I think we need to understand something. This MOU is not a peace agreement. It was never meant to be a peace agreement. The MOU was structured to address points that everybody agreed were, at least in theory, achievable. Well, they're not. And even though we have been defeated militarily in the Gulf, I don't see much evidence that President Trump is comfortable with that outcome. And I think what you have is a situation where whenever it suits us to undermine, attack, or destroy something that belongs to Iran, we will do it. And I think the Iranians, need to come to terms with that. We have to understand that President Trump is masterful with regard to how he manipulates markets. And you saw that the attacks he launched were launched after the business day on Friday in New York City closed and the market was closed. And the Iranians foolishly responded to that attack before Monday. They shouldn't have. They should have waited till Monday or Tuesday, where it would have had a direct impact on the markets. President Trump is very sensitive to the markets. It's not just because of the fall elections. He needs some measure of hope and balance in the marketplace to hold this faltering economy together. I mean, we actually had in the first quarter of 2025 negative growth in terms of GDP. We're going to see more of that in the future. We've got real problems here at home. Now, what does all of this mean to the Iranians? Well, the Iranians they have won in the Gulf, although they're going to be continually under fire, at least until the UAE, if it wants to exist, and cuts the deals that are being discussed behind the scenes with Iran to include sending billions of dollars to the Iranians. That really is their money. We refuse to give it up. So the UAE and I think Bahrain have both said to Iran, we'll get you the money. And they're filtering that money to the Iranians. If they can make that work and they can get the Saudis to abandon any dumb ideas of continuing cooperation with us, then I think they might achieve some degree of stability in the Gulf region. But the war and the center of gravity in the war has now shifted northward. That now focuses on both Lebanon and Syria. And this is important because you know who is sitting right on the edge, the Turks. And the Turks remain the 800-pound gorilla. The Turks are taking measures to ready themselves for a potential conflict with the Israelis. Now, the Turks have been bribed, and they've taken the bribes. They've gone along with what we wanted them to in order to satisfy the Israeli need. But they're reaching the end point. And I think everybody in the region who's been bribed or bullied by us or the Israelis to cooperate with the Israelis are all in the same boat, more or less. I don't know what the tipping point is. I don't know when you get to it, but I don't think it's that far off. And I think we have to keep in mind that Netanyahu and Naftali Bennett and Ben Gvir and others have very cavalierly attacked the Turks and threatened them and openly stated that they are, quote unquote, next on the menu. Well, Israel has not swallowed the Iranian meal. It's not going to. And if they keep this up, they could easily have the Turks on the menu in ways that they would rather not see. It is us. We're the key to protecting Israel from this imminent disaster. And the real question now is, can we do that? Because we can't defeat Iran in the south over the Gulf. Are we now shifting our emphasis to the north, where we're going to work with the Israelis, the Kurds, or anybody else we can find who is trying to destroy Iran? I suspect we're going to do that. The real question is, how long does everybody else up there wait until they say enough's enough and they join in the fight? I don't know, but I think it's coming.
And I just don't understand it seems to me, better question is that the White House seems to be paralyzed, not knowing what to do. I mean, you got J.D. Vance going one way, Marco Rubio going another way, President Trump literally just talking nonsense about, oh yeah, they're begging a meeting, and oh well, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Meanwhile, Netanyahu is staying in Lebanon. So that's just going to prevent anything from being worked out. That has big negative consequences for the United States, because the longer we don't get that strait open on a full basis, and right now it's only partially open, that's going to have negative economic implications for us, as you had you showed us a chart here. I wonder if you could explain what that danger is.
Well, we'll get to the chart in a second. I think we have to understand that President Trump's excursions into fiction and fantasy land have worked. You have to understand that. In other words, he says, we're going to have a peace deal, and everybody says, great, we're going to have a peace deal. The markets, rebound. The cost of oil goes down. Everybody says, peace is coming. Interest rates stabilize. I don't know how much longer he can do that, but he's been very successful thus far, and that's all he really cares about. Everything else he says is irrelevant. Don't pay any attention to it. None of it's true. The big mistake you can make is to follow him from day to day to day.
Which we do.
It's sort of a roller coaster ride to nowhere. He's not interested in any lasting or enduring relationship with anybody in the region other than Israel. And that's all financial and economic as far as he's concerned. And he sees his own future tied to that. And he likes to think that ours is. Well, I agree with you. Our strategic interests are not served by any of this. But it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what most Americans think. Look at the polls. We don't count. The only people that count are the people sitting on the Hill that are being well paid for their Israeli support. And, of course, the White House. And you've got plenty of senior officers in the military who are quite anxious to be Israel firsters so they too can be promoted. So let's be frank, that's where we are right now. I don't see any of that changing immediately. However, there is something else going on that nobody's paying attention to. And the chart that you mentioned, if you want to put it up, look at what this thing says. Treasury rollover risk now runs into the trillions. Privately held marketable U.S. Treasury debt maturing within 1 year. Within 1 year. Trillions of dollars. Look at the bottom. 1980, 2020, 2021, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How do you suppress interest rates? We don't really control interest rates anymore. They are rising, and they are continuing to rise. It's already 4% for a 1-year Treasury. Given our inability to sell Treasuries at the 10-year and above maturity levels, we're trying to have rapid turnover of Treasuries. This is the Scott Bessent model for avoiding consequences. I don't think it's going to happen much longer. So I'm not an economist, but I do take comfort in John Kenneth Galbraith's famous remark that economic forecasting exists to make astrologers look respectable. So I don't believe anything that the economists say, but I do believe charts like this. And I don't think we're going to escape the consequences of our foolish actions over many, many years now. This, more than anything else, may change the complexion of everything we do, because at some point, you have to park all the ships in harbor. At some point, you have to bring the forces back. At some point, you can't just spend, which is what we've been doing. And this $1.5 trillion defense budget, which will include a $350 million plus up from pork, I don't see that happening. I think it'll all collapse. But I've been wrong before, so we'll see.
We'll see, but those, like you say, the numbers are what they are, and they're definitely. I mean, you see that chart from 1980 all the way up through, just going higher and higher. There is a limit. At some point, you have to have a collapse from all that weight. It hadn't happened yet, and who knows how much longer it can go, and Trump can ride this. But we're rolling, and with a gamble of our own financial security as a result. We'll have to see how it works out. But we always appreciate you coming on and giving us this no kidding analysis that you see, Doug. Thank you.